today, like in last class, we almost did the important concepts of sexual reproduction in plants. And the last thing we discussed yesterday was fruits. So did you went back and studied about false fruits and true fruits?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Did you also go back and read about annual, biennial, and perennial plants?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. And what did you read? Okay, Fatima, was it you?
The annual plants are plants which completes its life cycle in only
Yes.
one season.
Yes, so that's called life cycle, right? Matthew, I think yesterday was talking about lifespan.
Yes, I said
Annual.
lifespan, but yeah, it's supposed to
So
be
what is the difference between life cycle and lifespan? Again, just those who know can answer. I have
life
discussed
cycle
it.
starts from like, for example, a plant's life cycle starts from germination and ends at like seed formation. And for annual plants, they die after seed formation. Same for biennial plants, but
Yes.
but perennial plants still stay along for more than 2 years.
Yes, perennial. Yes, right. So basically, when we say life cycle, the life cycle is the word itself says it's a cycle, right? So it has to continue over and over again. For example, like in humans, so the life cycle of any organism starts from the inception of that organism as a living system, like just after fertilization, the first zygote which is formed, right? So from zygote onwards till the animal or plant or organism reaches the sexual maturity where now it can again continue this cycle. It can give rise to another plant. Do you understand? So life cycle is a term used in reproductive context. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So for humans, let's say, what is the life cycle of a human? Like starting from fertilization, then till birth, it is 9 months. And then to reach sexual maturity where this cycle can again continue in another individual, it's around 13, let's say 13 to 14 years, correct? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes. But the lifespan, what is the average lifespan of a human? It's around 68 to 70 years. Okay. So lifespan is the span. Nothing can go beyond it. It's the complete span in which that living system lives. From birth to natural death is called lifespan. And from inception of that living system to its sexual maturity is called the life cycle. Okay. Okay, so I think everyone is here. Yes. Good evening. Arpit is here. Fatima Munir, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Fatima. How are you, Arpit?
We're fine.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. So Maharaj has joined. Okay, so one thing that we will discuss today, and we'll try to wind up with this and start with human reproduction, is there are certain things, some concepts that we have not discussed. I wanted to take them towards the end. Yes, Arpit, you have a question?
Sir, actually, sir, I didn't complete the influences part, so I left 5 minutes before. So can you repeat?
Yes, the last part. Yes. Any like
Only
we
the
will.
influences one.
Okay. So in last class, let me take from apomixis because this is something which is standalone, and we started. So apomixis, you know that seeds are always formed from sexual reproduction, right? But
Yes,
apomixis is kind of a mimicry to sexual reproduction. So it is asexual reproduction which mimics sexual reproduction. And in this, there is formation of seed. So you can write in apomixis. So this is asked. So what mimics sexual reproduction? So apomixis. Okay. And here the formation of seed takes place asexually from the maternal tissues of the ovule. Now I asked you, what are the ways by which, because we know that seed or a zygote is diploid, right? But
Yes,
the
sir.
egg cell is haploid, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in plants that mimic sexual reproduction, but they know that they are not actually doing sexual reproduction, then they have to find some other alternatives to be able to make an embryo which is diploid. So what they do is they do not undergo meiosis when they are forming the ovule. Sorry, when they're forming the egg cell inside the ovule. So if egg cell is not formed after meiosis, that egg cell will be diploid, right? Because only after meiosis it becomes haploid from a diploid um, egg cell mother cell, what we call it, macrospore mother cell, MMC, remember? So from macrospore mother cell, these ovules or egg cells are formed. So if there is no meiosis, it will stay diploid. And if that diploid egg cell without any fertilization can just go on to form a zygote and start dividing to form an embryo, it will mimic sexual reproduction, but nothing has happened actually, right? After that, I told you the, yes, please, Fatima.
The ploidy will be then 4N.
2N. So the ploidy of an embryo or a zygote is 2N, right? One
But
copy
then,
come, yes.
One of the copy will be diploid and the other one will also be diploid because no meiosis undergoes. So then
Yes.
diploid should be 4N, right?
No. So remember I told you that after meiosis, when there are when macrospore mother cell give rise to 4 cells, only one of them goes forward to make an egg cell. Rest 3 degenerates. Yes, remember?
Yeah.
Yes. So similarly, when after mitosis, when they form a egg cell, only one of the product becomes the egg cell. Others are degenerated. And anyways, if there are multiple egg cells, they won't fertilize among themselves. So the point is they don't allow any pollen grain or any male nucleus to come in and fertilize. So most of the times, it is the egg cell itself which has been formed from mitosis and not meiosis, hence it is diploid, and it can just continue from there, starts dividing and form an embryo. Is it clear? So it remains 2N. Do you understand how it remains 2N?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I asked you to go back and read about annual, biennial, perennial plants and also the advantages of apomixis. Could anyone find any advantage of apomixis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Fatima, tell me.
So it produces same progeny as mother parent, which helps in maintaining the quality of crop plants.
Yes.
And also,
but this is an advantage from humans' perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like we are interested in the quality of the plant. The plant as an organism is merely interested or in the expansion of the species. Yes, another, Fatima?
The other
First.
one, it helps in production of hybrid seeds with a combination of desirable characters. This one I didn't understand.
Yes. So this we can do, right? Upon apomixis, if we can get the seeds, basically we can make hybrids. Remember, there are many ways to make hybrids. One way was grafting, I told you.
Yes, sir.
You just put the shoot of the desirable plant on the root system of a desirable plant and you make a hybrid plant. Here, I'll tell you how we make hybrids. But the first point that you said, I think everyone should write that. One basic, the most common advantage of apomixis is that plants which have all the good characters to survive in a given environment, if they let's say are not able to reproduce sexually. For example, if there is a region in which only female flowering plants are present, let's say all the trees, all the plants are female flowers, so will they be able to do sexual reproduction?
No, sir.
But and vegetative propagation is not an option because we do it. And if these plants have flowers, they have committed for a sexual reproduction kind of a thing, kind of a process. So they undergo apomixis, many of these plants. So apomixis is not very rare. I will not say it's rare in plant kingdom, but it is not as prevalent as sexual reproduction. Okay. But when it happens, it helps the plant species, which has all the good desirable characters to survive, to just make multiple quality copies of itself. Okay. So, and they will always be around, like in a vicinity, there'll be a region of that jungle which will be full of these plants which have all grown through apomixis. So they make seeds, an embryo, that seed falls and germinates. So a lot of plants can be made through that. And also because they make seeds, they get all the advantage of germinating from a seed. Like they get protection, and the seed coat will not allow the embryo to come prematurely, and all that thing which we studied about seed coat. Remember in the last class, everyone? So all the benefits of a sexual reproduction without actually going through it. So it's a mimicry. Okay. Clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then we studied fruit.
Yes,
And I told you about that fruits are,
Excuse me, sir.
yes, please.
Sir, I was reading the advantages, and sir, it was written that there is no risk of segregation. So, what does it mean?
There is
No risk of segregation.
segregation. Yes. So class 11th, Mendelian genetics, 3 laws given by Mendel. Remember? Laws of inheritance, law of dominance,
Of independent transmission.
law of dominance, law of segregation of gametes, and law of independent assortment. Remember?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what happens in law of segregation? It means, see, if a plant has all the desirable characters, then whenever it will do a sexual reproduction, the traits will get segregated no matter what, because only one copy goes in one seed from one parent. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So if you are doing sexual reproduction, there is always going to be genetic variation, and it's not a risk, but it is a cost associated. That suppose one plant is an ideal plant, it has all the characteristics we need, and this we got by luck, like by sheer, not by luck but by probability, that all things got through sexual reproduction. There is a plant which has 8 out of 10 desirable traits. Now when this plant will undergo sexual reproduction, again all its traits will get segregated. Some will go into this gamete, some will go into that gamete, right? And the chances of the next generation being as good as the parents is less, right? They will be different. Now they can be better and they can be worse as well. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So that is called the risk. So there is no risk of segregation here because segregation is not happening, but still seed is being produced. So the same thing that Fatima said in different words, it means that. Do you understand now, Arpit?
Yes, sir.
So there is no risk of losing all the good things that you have as a plant. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So even in the next generation, because it's asexual reproduction only, all these good traits will go through a seed. Okay. Then we talked about fruit, true and false. True are which are ripened ovary called eucarp. False is pseudocarp, anything but not the ovary. Okay. Which can be thalamus, peduncle. So peduncle, thalamus are parts, right? And this is where you are confused, Arpit.
Yes.
Inflorescence is some plants have their flowers in bunch, small flowers present in a bunch together. They get pollinated together. They also shed together, like mango flowering. Have you seen a mango flowering? A mango tree with flowers? Just before the fruiting season, there is mango flowers. But these flowers are very different from the normal flowers that you see, right? They more often look like a bunch, a
Sir,
bouquet.
mango flower?
Yes, you have never seen a mango tree flowering? No? Okay, go and it's just simple. Put on Google mango inflorescence or mango flower. So a bunch of flowers together present as one unit is called inflorescence. Okay, it's not called a single flower. It is multiple flower together. It's called inflorescence. So sometimes this whole inflorescence gets ripened up, and that happens in case of jackfruit and pineapple. Okay. So this is also a false fruit because it is the ripened edible part of the fruit is not coming from ovary, it is coming from the inflorescence, the whole inflorescence, thalamus, peduncle, everything. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, today I'll be talking about, so because you understood apomixis, there is one more concept called polyembryony. What is polyembryonic? What does the word poly means?
Many.
Single.
Multiple.
Multiple. Who
Many.
said single? Did someone say single? No, I think, okay. Poly means multiple, and embryonic comes from embryo, right?
Yes.
So I told you that one seed contains one embryo in normally, right? Yes. But you will find many fruits. When you open those fruits, there are multiple seeds and multiple embryos inside, right? Or inside one seed, there are multiple embryos. So that concept is known as polyembryony. Now, how is polyembryony achieved? So write down polyembryony. Let's first define polyembryony. Write down polyembryony is defined as the fruits, not fruits, the plants in which apomixis happens. The plants in which apomixis happens often give rise to a condition. In which two or more embryos develop from a single egg cell. Now, it is more common in apomitic plants, but it's also possible in normal plants. So in normal plants that undergo sexual reproduction, there is a possibility where more than two embryos can be formed from one single egg cell after its fertilization. Is it clear? That is called polyembryony. Now write down next thing.
How does that happen?
Yes, telling you that. Write down. It is equivalent to, now you will understand how this happens. Polyembryony in plants is equivalent to the production of identical twins. Okay. Now you know how are identical twins produced in humans?
The embryo divides.
Yes. So it does not divide, it splits. The embryo always divides. But in this case, what happens? After the zygote is formed and when it starts forming the embryo. So when the zygote is in the transition of becoming an embryo from one cell to two cells. So two cell onwards, we call it embryo because now it is a multicellular structure. Now, when it becomes two-celled embryo, these two cells, instead of sticking together and then forming 4 and 8, 16, 32, so on, these two cells mistakenly or through something, they detach from each other, but they still continue to divide. So this one cell will make another embryo and this one cell will make another embryo. Do you understand? So this is zygote, which is a single cell which is diploid. Okay. So when zygote is dividing to form two cells, okay, so this will be a embryo, correct? From two cell onwards, it's called an embryo.
Yeah.
After the division, both detach from each other. They were supposed to stay together and then form 4 cells, then 8, 16. It's exponential, right? But then they detach and again start behaving like a single celled embryo. Again keeps dividing, form 4, 8, and so on cells. This also does the same thing, 4, 8, and so on. So this develops.
Possible for sexual plants?
Yes, it is happening in sexual plants only. So this particular embryo forms another organism, one, one individual, and this forms another individual. Okay. but both the individual basically came from the same zygote, no? If this event would not have happened, they would not have split. But even if after they split, basically everything genetically which is in this is present in this as well, because they were a part of only one zygote only. During the first division, they got split. Do you understand? Is it clear, Matthew?
Sir, I wanted
Yes,
to
sir.
ask actually,
Yes, Fatima, please.
not in sexual plants, in plants which do not undergo apomixis.
Yes, so plants which do not undergo apomixis undergo sexual reproduction. Plants which undergo apomixis is a mimicry of sexual reproduction. But in both the cases, whether this zygote, which is a single diploid cell, whether it is formed from sexual fusion or just by a diploid egg in a apomictic plant, but this cell will be there, no, Fatima?
Yes, sir. But
One,
sir, in the
yes,
definition you wrote about apomixis,
apomixis is,
you wrote that apomixis happens to often give rise to a condition. You didn't write about the other one.
yes. So I okay. So I just told you that it's more common that polyembryony happens in apomictic plants, but it can also happen in a sexually reproducing plant. That also I told you, right? You can remove that apomictic thing. You can just write a better statement would be just write in plants a condition in which, okay, it can happen both in apomictic or in a true sexually reproducing plant. Is it better, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So it's a valid point. Okay. So just make in plants a condition in which 2 or more embryos are produced. But you understood how they are produced, and all these embryos will be identical, no? They cannot be different embryos because they are coming from the same origin. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
But they are polyembryonic. So polyembryony in plants is equivalent to giving rise to identical twins in humans. Non-identical twins, on the other hand, are the twins which are, yes, Arpit.
Sir, what's the ploidy of the new organisms formed?
What is the ploidy? Yes, 2n. But because this zygote was 2n, so when it will divide into 2 cells, each will be 2n. You understand? Because now all these divisions are mitotic divisions. They are just equivalent divisions.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Clear?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Perfect. Okay, cool. And non-identical twins are those twins where, okay, about that I will tell in the female reproductive system, because a concept of female reproduction is involved there. But you understood identical twins, how are they formed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And you also understood polyembryony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So have you all read NCERT, your chapter 2? There are certain terms which are like very easy. When you read the NCERT, you will get to know what it means because it's defined there only. If you have any doubt, you can come back to me anytime in any class, bring it back. But please do read NCERT, okay? Okay, so what else I wanted to discuss with you?
New chapter.
Oh, yeah, yes, that I know. There was something with plants also that I wanted to discuss. Okay, but let's start this new chapter. We'll always go back if there is any parallel that I am with any concept. If I can draw a parallel with plants, I will keep going back to the plant system. Okay. Okay, so this is the third chapter where we are going to study about human reproduction, and on this chapter we'll spend quite some time because a lot of concepts important for both medical entrances as well as other entrances that you're planning to give in life sciences. Human is a very important part of it, human physiology. And in class 11th you have studied human physiology as a unit, right? But there you did not study human reproduction in that unit. So yes, so that reproduction unit is specifically elaboratively given in class 12, but it's still the part of human physiology. Okay, So when I teach students who are preparing for entrances, like I teach this in human physiology only. But before I start with human reproduction, let me orient you to this chapter, and this is very important. So studying about reproduction in humans is not just a matter of studying certain organs or studying how they are functioning, but it's much more, and it has much greater significance than that. Let me give you one very simple analogy to make you understand this. Knowledge is very important so that humans can decide for themselves what they want to do with that knowledge. Have you heard of this quotation that half knowledge is even dangerous than full knowledge, complete knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you know something, if you have a hint of something, but you do not have an access to the full knowledge in a proper manner, it's not going to be beneficial for you. In today's world, we have everything at the palm of our, like in our palm. We have a device called mobile phone with internet in it, and you can literally go and search anything and everything and can get to know what is happening, good, bad, worst, everything. Now this is a behavioral experiment that has been done where you will give me the answers. Okay, so there is a road, or there is a way, a pathway from which a lot of people every day cross and go to their respective offices and schools and wherever they are going. Okay, and on just the roadside there is a building with a big door which is not locked, so you can see that it's a little bit open. If you want to, you can just open and get into it, but no one gets into it. Everyone is just busy reaching where they want to reach and busy with their own lives, but the door is open and no one is entering because no one is paying attention to it. But if in the same scenario, if I just put a big notice on that door that do not enter, but leave that door open, then what will happen?
Many people would enter just for
Curiosity.
curiosity.
Exactly. So now I'm just putting a seed in people's mind, and that seed, regardless of what you do, will take the shape of, will grow and take a shape. So if you are asking someone to not do this, and still there is a way by which that person can easily do it, that person will do it, right?
Yeah, because
Yes.
they'll be like, why not?
Exactly, that why not? And this is how our psychology works. It's the same thing. Like if I ask you to think about a mango, what are you thinking about right now?
A mango.
A mango? Everyone? Yes? Yes or no?
Yeah,
Now I ask you, do not think about an elephant. What are you thinking about right now?
Elephant.
an elephant.
Right? So there is no concept of telling your psychology, do not do this. There's only a concept where you do it, know it, like you get the full knowledge, and then you decide that I already know what's going to happen, but do I really want to do it or not? Okay, so that is the whole point of us studying human biology, and especially this reproduction chapter, because I find there's a lot of taboo associated with sex education in our society, and also among the minds of those who are educated most of the times, because they believe that if they go and tell their kids that do not do this, their kids will not do that. And that's a misconception. It's never going to happen. If you ask a kid that this thing is strictly prohibited, you are not allowed to ever ride a bicycle, the kid is not just going to say, okay, I'll not ride a bicycle. You have to show him why, if there is a reason why you're not asking him to ride a bicycle or something like that, but you have to give him the access to the bicycle first, so that he can decide for himself that do I want to do it or do I don't want to do it. Especially with kids who are grown up like you, so you all are in adolescence, you are in class 12th, and you know everything, right? And you, if you do not know something, you know how to access that information. So after I finish human reproduction, there'll be two aims of mine. One will be to make you understand and aware of the beautiful biology that's happening between the two segregated sexes present in human species, the male and the female. What's happening, what makes males males and females. Because apart from reproductive system, rest all other systems are more or less the same in both the sexes, right? If you talk about cardiac system, muscular system, neural circuit, like nervous system, they all are same. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But when it comes to reproductive system, this is where a lot of gray zone is left both by schools and educators and even parents at home in general in society. So after I finish this chapter, I want all of you to engage in discussions, understand and respect the biology of the opposite gender, the opposite sex, so that you understand that why should not you disrespect the other person, okay, or the other gender, or to look down upon. I see biology like this. See, knowledge and biology, actually, specifically about biology, I will say, because I'm teaching you this subject, it helps you to get rid of a lot of discrimination already existing in society. Just giving you an example before I start with human reproduction. We all know that there is a world revolution happening. We are living in the middle of it, but it is not something new. It is going on from ages and generations, that people who are colored are fighting for their equal rights, right? In some places
Yes.
of the world, we already have given them, but in some places still, colored or dark people or blacks, which we call them, they are fighting for their equal rights. And why do whites or fair skinned look down on black or colored skinned people?
Due to
What is the
biology,
reason?
they are in majority and they are.
No, even if they are majority, minority is always going to play a part, but in even like regardless of majority or minority, in even in their thoughts, they are discriminating. Why?
Because they
Because
were
they think they're superior.
Yes, because they think that fair skin is a better trait, is a more beautiful or a superior trait, right? The same
Yes.
goes for a lean body over a fat, chubby body. The same goes for males over females for a particular job. The same goes for, it could be uh, discrimination on the basis of race, nationality, religion, gender, color, etc. But do you know why colored skin people are dark? What is the reason behind dark skin?
They have
The
a
melanin.
pigment,
The melanin.
pigment
Melanin.
called melanin.
Yes, perfect. They have a pigment in their skin which is produced in large quantities called melanin. So melanin makes a coating, like internal shield, in all their cells which are present in their epidermis. It's not like if you take any internal organ of a colored person, that organ will also be colored. It's not like that. It's just the outer layer, the epidermis, which is colored, right? Everything inside is exactly the same. But this
So it
melanin,
protects us from sun rays. So that's why, sir, the equatorial region people have darker skin rather than people in Europe and UK
yes,
where there is always rain and
yes. So one thing is this melanin protects. Why it is more in people who live around equator, which Mehraj is correctly pointing out, is because melanin protects the skin cells from the penetrating UV radiation of the sun. So it's not protecting from sunlight, because sunlight is a mixture of a lot of radiations. Sunlight is actually a radiation, you know that? It has ultraviolet band also, it has the visible spectrum also, and it also has the infrared spectrum, like after red and before the violet. So before the violet, which is the ultraviolet, it is very, very high energy rays. They are so high energy rays that they can actually penetrate your skin cells, reach the DNA present in your skin cells, and can break down your DNA, can cause mutations, can cause breaks in the DNA. And because of this, the skin cells can become, they can start growing in an uncontrolled manner, and that situation is known as cancer. So they can have skin cancer. So people who are living in Africa and regions like towards the equator, like Sri Lanka and all these countries which come in that uh, between equator to tropical range, they are mostly dark skinned because of melanin. but melanin prevents them from getting skin cancer. So if you see this feature, you know biologically, a person who has always lived in Europe, who thinks he is a fair-skinned person, or someone who is in Canada who thinks he is a fair-skinned person and is superior, if you just put that person in extreme heat, extreme sunlight in a country like Africa, will he be able to survive?
No, sir.
Then how is he superior? In his thoughts, right? Just because there is a misconception about power and what things are superior and what are not. Biologically, according to me and according to you also, if you answer logically, who do you think is better evolved to survive under extreme conditions and who is superior?
Dark.
So naturally, a dark-skinned evolution is more superior because they tolerate things way beyond a fair-skinned person can ever tolerate biologically. So even not talking about superiority here, we should not discriminate them because their biology is evolved according to what they face from nature, right? Same thing when you will understand, when males in this class will understand and appreciate a female reproductive system, and when females present in this class will understand and appreciate a male reproductive system, what makes male male, you will be able to respect each other more. Okay, and that will be one motive of mine in this class. So when you, whatever you take from my class, also take this one thing, that in your real world you should use your education not just for getting marks. Yes, that is one purpose that you should focus right now, but also try to make this world a better place with whatever you know. Okay, everyone.
Yes.
And I just told you this because I already know that you're not going to giggle or you're not going to feel shy in answering something, or you are using certain words like vagina, penis, or a condom, because they are all part of education. We have to know these things. I don't know why in societies, if you go to a shop to get a sanitary pad, which females have to use during their menstrual cycle, that is always wrapped in something and given to you so that the world is not allowed to see a sanitary pad, right? Why? Why is the world not allowed to see a sanitary pad? The world has come into existence. Everyone on this planet has come into existence through reproductive structures of a female. And I see that it is no less than a magic in science that the second most important or magical event which I feel in science after the origin of universe is when a female gives birth to a baby. Any species, any female, when they give birth to a baby or an offspring, it just tells that they are capable of producing life, right? Isn't it a very beautiful moment? So we are allowed to celebrate that, but we are not allowed to know a lot of things that are important for us to become more responsible and informed humans, whatever gender we belong to. Okay, so let's start with human reproduction. And before we begin with the reproductive parts, let's talk about certain concepts. One concept which is important is birth. Now, what is birth?
Production of offspring.
But what is birth?
The expulsion of the baby from the mother's body.
Right? So the babies coming out from the mother body is called birth. Okay, production is happening inside, right? So there are, let's go through this thing. So there is something called fertilization, which we know now. It's an event. What happens in fertilization? A male and a female
gamete and female gamete
fuses. After that, there is something that happens which is called implantation. This we will study. I'm just giving you a broad outlook. What is implantation of embryo?
The embryo gets attached in the uterus.
Yes. So the
endometrium.
Exactly. So the fertilization is not happening exactly where the embryo is developing. It happens somewhere else. Then that embryo moves and gets embedded literally in the walls of the uterus of the female in case of humans. So we will talk about humans from now onwards. Then after this implantation, there is a phase which is known as pregnancy, right? We call that the female is a pregnant female. Now in pregnancy, after implantation till birth, that period in between is called gestation period. Gestation period is where the embryo is developing. Everything inside is developing. From one single cell, which was zygote, a full-fledged organism is formed in case of humans, with bones, tissues, systems, organs, everything. So that's gestation period. Okay, Arpit? This is where the formation is taking place. And just a quick fact, which is the first organ that forms in a human embryo?
Heart.
Heart. You know at which day it is formed after implantation? So after implantation on the 22nd day. So from 22nd day onwards, after implantation, which means not even a month, right? It's around 3 weeks, but just a little more than 3 weeks. There is a very, very rudimentary fundamental flap which forms, which acts as a heart. It's beating. It is so feeble that you will not be able to hear or feel it like from outside. But with the help of a sensitive stethoscope, you can actually feel that there are 2 beats inside a pregnant mother after a month. Okay. And why it is important? Why heart is a very important organ? Because it is constantly pumping the body fluid from one place to another, right? In this case,
Yes.
in our case, that fluid is blood. So it's pumped, and with that, nutrition and waste both are taken from one place to another. Okay, so that's why it's important. So heart, you can just write down, is the first organ that is functional, and it's functional from 22nd day onward. Now, birth is coming out of the baby from the mother's body. Now, there are 2 types. One is called live birth and one is egg laying. So if it is egg laying, because in egg laying also, along with that egg, inside the baby is inside an egg, and the baby is always inside a cavity. You know that? It's always enclosed. Even for human, it is enclosed. It's called amniotic cavity. You know that?
Yes, sir.
It is like a
It's
transparent
a fluid type.
yes. So that is amniotic fluid in which we are. So when we are inside our mother's womb, we are not breathing. You know, we do not breathe physically. Our lungs are filled with fluid, and we are inside a liquid suspension. Then how are we getting oxygen? Quickly, you know,
Plus
from
The
the
RBC,
The placenta.
from the blood.
yes. Okay, just one more question. Do we use our mother's blood, or are we formed from our mother's blood when we are inside our mother's body?
Yes.
No. That is a very common and a very big misconception. Mother's blood has nothing to do with the baby or the production of baby, because we have heard it. It's like a in cultural stories, in mythological, theological, social stories, and it is just a saying that when we are inside our mothers, we depend on her blood. We are feeding our mother's blood when we are inside, right? We always hear these things. It is wrong. A mother's blood never comes into contact with the baby's blood. That is the reason. You have never thought this? It's not always that the mother's, what is the blood group of the mother and the baby will not be same all the time. You know that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So if we are developed from our mother's blood, then our blood should always be the same as our mother's. The blood group should always be the same, no? That is just one very single thing to just burst this myth, that our blood never mixes with our mother's blood. That is why we have placenta in place, and we'll talk about it. So just know one thing: we are not formed from our mother or our father's blood, because it's a very common saying that in my veins my father's blood is running, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It's not. Your father's blood never reached the place where you were formed. Okay, all that reached was semen, which had no blood in it normally, and all that reached inside the egg was the head of that sperm contributed by your father. Not even the tail also reached, only the head reached. and all which helped in your development was the genes that head carried. And even your mother's blood was not responsible for the formation of your body. Okay, just know this.
So where does the tail go? It gets degenerated, right?
Yes, it just stays with, like, the moment head enters, the tail gets stuck, because tail has nothing important to contribute. Even if you put the tail inside, it will just degenerate and die. It is just a protein, right? It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So egg laying, the organisms which lay eggs are called oviparous. Okay. And the word O looks like an egg. So this is how I remember. It starts with an egg, so it is egg laying organisms, oviparous. And those which gives live birth to the young ones, they are called
Viviparous.
Yes, sorry. Viviparous. Okay. So ovipary and vivipary. Just write it down. Egg laying is ovipary and giving live birth to the young ones is vivipary. And hence the organisms are called oviparous and viviparous. Okay.
Can you spell that? Ovipary.
Pary. Just so it is
okay,
the
fine.
process. Ovipary is the process. Oviparous is an organism. So humans are oviparous and they show ovipary. Okay, Matthew?
Okay, sir.
Simple, right? Now, even the organisms which give live birth, their babies are also inside some membranous, like they have a boundary inside which they are present. How many of you know that human babies are inside a sac called amniotic membrane, and inside that there is an amniotic cavity filled? So we are present in a jelly-like chamber inside our mother's womb, which gets burst. Have you heard of this term, water burst?
Yes, my water
Yes,
broke.
yes.
Yes, my water broke. And what does this mean that the water broke? It means that the uterus was holding up something inside it, and inside it there was a jelly-like membrane inside which the embryo was developing as a baby, and lot of fluid was just holded by that jelly-like membrane. So the moment that membrane breaks, it is a signal that now the baby wants to come out, and the baby and the uterus both got all the signals required to come out. And after the water breaks,
So what actually stimulates this jelly-like structure to break?
Yes, we'll study that. This thing called, there are many, again, hormones come into picture, and few hormones which are important like oxytocin and relaxin. We will talk about this later on in this chapter only, in the female part. Okay, but they give the signal that now the development is over, the baby is ready to come out, and then the water breaks. So you have heard of the term my water broke from a pregnant female. Sometimes in case of cesarean birth, so if you know when that female conceived, how long it has been, the pregnancy has been, so you can actually decide the date for your cesarean, right? A cesarean birth is where they put a incision in the lower abdomen of the female. They open the lower abdomen, then they open the uterus and take the baby directly out, right? It does not have to come through the vaginal canal, which is called the birth canal. Yes. In those cases, there is something called, a very interesting thing happens, that jelly-like membrane does not breaks, and you can actually take out the baby like it's inside a balloon, and you can see that baby inside, but the baby still has not got the signal, like it is feeling like it is inside the embryo only. So it shows nothing, no crying, no movement of hands and legs, like there are movement but no movement to break, and baby looks like it's sleeping peacefully inside that membrane, and that's called a wheel birth. You can go and search the photographs on internet.
So
What is
then
wheel?
how afterwards do the doctors break it, or what?
Yes.
How do they do it?
You just poke something and cut it. The moment you poke something, it's like a balloon, so it bursts and all the water will spill and you can take the baby out. And you know why babies cry after birth? Just some foundational things we are doing in today's class, just to put you in context and make things interesting for you. Otherwise biology is boring. Why do we cry after birth? Why?
To show if we are alive.
Sir,
Because
to make the lungs clear, sir, to make the lungs clear.
so we know
Sir,
already
we can,
that. See, I have to make my lungs clear. Let me cry.
Because we got
no, sir, sir, because
No, like when you're in your mother's stomach, there is no like sound. It's very like silent. But then suddenly, when you get outside, the baby suddenly experiences it. So might be
Ah,
that.
okay. So this
so I
is
think it's because getting
interesting.
oxygen like
sir, we
Yes,
have
suddenly.
to start breathing, so that's why.
yes, yes, yes. Can you complete that, please? What happens when they start breathing? Maharaj, it was you, right?
Yes, sir. So the bronchs open up, sir.
Then what happens?
They get filled with air in the, as we are in the womb, so there's fluid source that has to come out.
Yes, when we are inside our mother's womb, I told you that we are inside a fluid filled cavity. So there is a pressure outside, right? And there is a, and that our lungs are not filled with air. The first time after we are born, we are out of the fluid. So now outside there is a air pressure. It was never a air pressure outside before. So the first time we breathe in when we are born, it's the first time when air rushes into our nostrils and goes into our. You all have studied class 11th respiratory system, how lungs contract and relax. So when they are in contracted position, there is a negative pressure. So they have to get fulfill again, right? Air rushes in. You do not have to, like, breathing happens on its own, right? Are you every time voluntarily breathing?
Yeah, it's involuntary, just like your heart beating.
Yes, but you can control it also. We cannot control our heartbeat, but we can control breathing. But most of the time when you're sleeping, it is like when you breathe out, lungs lose air and there is a negative pressure, then they again have to get filled. So air rushes in. Similarly, the moment we are born, air rushes in our lungs. And for the very first time, all the muscles of our lung get stretched, gets filled with air, and that hurts. And that's why we cry. So it's very important. Crying is a readout that the baby's function are working, vitals are working normally. If anyone does not cry
So
after,
that is why, so they start rubbing the back of the baby if they don't cry.
yes, yes, you start rubbing or tapping the back of the baby, okay, to make the baby cry, which means
So they have to immediately be put in ICU after that
in a
if they don't start in the ICU, sir.
ICU. Yeah, you
ICU.
can. Yeah, you can. Normally they cry. It's like under very very rare some problematic conditions babies don't cry, but they normally cry. Okay, so crying is just a inbuilt what we call a behavioral output. We learn to laugh after we are born, but crying is something we just know. Okay, so wheel birth, you can go and see wheel birth. This is where the babies are born, but still are considered as unborn. So that is a birth of an unborn baby, which is still inside that amniotic cavity. The moment it will come out, that will be birth. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir. Please.
Sir, when it becomes necessary to perform cesarean surgeries.
Cesarean is, see, if I'll talk scientifically, there are many factors of incidences of cesarean now getting increased. Earlier, when we did not knew that there could be a cesarean procedure, humanity is giving birth to babies, right? From times immemorial. Yes. So everything in biology is developed accordingly. So all the things which we are going to study in female part, I'm just giving a gist of it, that the female pelvic girdle is broader than the male pelvic girdle, okay, which we in normal terms consider that as the. So there are two girdles in every human's anatomy. One is this shoulder girdle. Girdle is a structure which is like this. So bones are present like this, okay, and in between there is a cavity. So there are two girdles. You understood? This is a girdle. This is a girdle. So this is one bone, this is another, and they meet like this to make a girdle. So something has to come in between. In our shoulder girdle, our head comes from that. So you know the clavicle bone and the backbone. So this clavicle bone along with this back ridge bone makes the girdle, okay, and our head comes out of it. Similarly, there's a pelvic girdle from where the birth canal lies, and females have a broader pelvic girdle, and after puberty that gets even broader to prepare the female body for a birth in upcoming times. Okay, so but nowadays over time, there are many factors, like it's convenient, it's less painful, so you can just put local anesthesia in that region, cut the region, female will not feel a lot of pain. Like comparative to a birth, that pain is nothing. In a normal birth, when this pelvic girdle of a female opens, so it is wider, and plus at the junctions it is not set, it is not a proper junction, it is just together by ligaments. In males it is fused, it is a proper junction, you cannot open a male pelvic girdle, but a female pelvic girdle opens, and all these ligaments which are in between breaks during a childbirth. And that pain, if not assisted with any kind of, and you cannot give painkillers also. Why you cannot give painkillers?
That will affect the
That will affect
baby.
the baby, because the baby should not be exposed to unnecessary drugs. So during the pregnancy and during that whole procedure, when we ask a pregnant female to try and push the baby out, that pelvic girdle opens, and there is a whole restructuring happening of the hip bone of the females, along with stretching of the uterine walls and the vaginal walls, and the pain is very, very severe. So there is a pain index, of course, a scientific index prepared on the basis of what is the degree of that pain. So when a pain of delivery is somewhere considered equivalent to, in a male's body, if the femur bone, what is the femur bone? The thigh bone.
Yes.
That is the biggest and the strongest bone, right? The thigh bone. So if your thigh bone breaks along with 4 or 5 other bones simultaneously from your ribs, so you are breaking 3 rib bones with a thigh bone. In that moment, the kind of pain you will feel is the pain that females undergo during childbirth. So one reason is the doctors often suggest cesareans, that if you're not feeling like it, and you may not survive because of some complications are there, or if the female body is not that strong, or if there was some earlier operation or surgery that happened in those cases, or when the baby's position is complicated. So normally the head should be down. First the head and the shoulders come out from the birth canal. The broadest part of a baby's and even a human's body is the shoulder, right? If our shoulders
Yes.
can go
Yes.
through anything, our body will surely come out through that hole. So just with some adjustments, they take out the head, they hold the head of the baby and try to squeeze the shoulder through that place. Once the shoulder comes out, the baby comes out. But if there is some problem, like the umbilical cord is not in a proper position, and you are thinking that there might be a risk for the baby during this normal delivery, or the baby is not in the proper orientation upside down, then they go for cesarean. Okay, Arpit? There are many other factors also about which we should not talk here. Many of the times, even when normal surgery is possible, hospitals often go for cesarean because that will fetch them more money. You will use, it's a surgical procedure, right? So a doctor will come do the surgery, it's invasive, so you have to make a cut, and all other things associated, costs go up, and hospitals makes
So
profit.
the normal delivery does not require doctor.
It is also done by a doctor, yes, of course. In a normal delivery, you are just asking the female to endure and push the baby out. Then there is a doctor taking care of that baby when it is coming out, holding it, adjusting it, putting it in proper orientation with his or her own hands, and then cutting the umbilical cord, and then putting that baby with proper care and all that. Okay.
Yes.
Anyways, so let's come back. So the concept of birth is clear, wheel birth is clear. Now live birth and wheel birth was associated with live birth. Versus when there is an egg laying. So inside an egg, what is happening? What is an egg basically? egg is a hardened, so we are also inside a jelly like covering. The egg is a hardened covering. Mostly all the eggs are calcium carbonate structures. So all the organisms which lay eggs, you will see, how many of you have boiled a chicken egg?
Yes,
If you
sir.
boil a chicken egg, you will see that there is a hard shell on the top.
Yeah, and then you remove that, and then you get that.
If you remove that hard shell, yes, what, Matthew? Please continue.
Yeah, you remove that hard shell, and then you actually get the thing you got to eat.
No, you are
Then,
in too much of hurry to eat. Not
oh,
we are not eating. We are not eating the egg right now.
yeah.
When you take out that hard shell, have you realized that beneath that hard covering there is a membrane like, transparent membrane like structure also?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
It's
yes,
transparent.
yeah.
That is the equivalent structure to the human amniotic cavity. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so we do not have a hard covering of calcium over our eggs, but we are also inside an egg, right? And our eggs can be sometimes taken out without bursting it, which is called wheel birth, where you can see the baby which is inside a membrane. So have you seen these experiments where they use some low intensity acid or a soda, and you put this egg inside it for overnight, and this calcium starts reacting with the chemical and gets dissolved, and you can see a transparent egg then? Have you seen these videos?
Yeah, sir.
If I somehow chemically dissolve all the calcium on that egg, calcium carbonate, then this only this membrane will be left. And upon boiling the egg, it is very obviously visible. Okay. So basically an egg is just a premature baby, which is packed inside this egg and pushed out of the body. So in this case, the development is happening externally, right? In the case of egg, where there is an embryo inside that egg, development happens external to the female body, right now? And in our case, development happens inside the female body. But we need food from somewhere, right? So for that, in our case, there is an umbilical cord attached to the placenta. In placenta is a disc-like structure embedded in the uterus of our mothers. But here also in egg, there must be something which should provide nutrition. You know what is it? It's called yolk. Yolk provides nutrition to developing embryo. Yolk is like endosperm in a seed. Okay. Now we are drawing parallels between a seed and an egg. In a seed, there is an embryo and there is an endosperm for that embryo. In an egg, and there is a seed coat. In an egg, there is an egg wall, eggshell. Inside, there is a developing embryo, and there is a yolk. Yolk provides nutrition to the developing embryo. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So if we make parallels to the seed, it is not the sperms, which is the seed of life for humans. The seed of life is that egg, the developing embryo egg. Okay. Everyone has written all this. Shall I move forward?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yes, sir.
Yes. Now I will directly go to this diagram which I have taken from NCERT. Let me just put it here. So we will start with the male reproductive system first, and then we'll go to the female reproductive system. Okay. And since we were talking about fighting discrimination in our lives also, learning from biology, let me tell you this very interesting fact now. We also see gender discrimination happening around us, right? And mostly the oppressed gender is the female, on the basis of, because things in a patriarchal setup, females are not given equal rights, and even in corporate setups where for the same job females are not paid equivalent to males, because the point is that if a female gets pregnant, then she'll not be able to work for rest 1 year, right? So the concept of pregnancy leave is there in many developed countries where the females, because see, if all the females just stop this thing that okay, we want equal rights and we do not want to get pregnant, because if we get pregnant you will just kick us out of our jobs, then aren't we working against the ethos of humanity? Like this is
Yes, sir.
something only females can do, right? How can you ever talk about, like a female is not a it's a liability or a burden to a company because she might get pregnant and stay away from the job for this, and males are more productive because they can work, females have to take care of kids and cook. So a lot of things are not gender jobs, they are just life skills that everyone should know. For example, I believe personally, keeping your place clean, cooking so that you can survive and eat something are not gender roles, and taking care of a kid are not gender roles, but we have made it like that. They are just skills that every human, regardless of what gender they belong to, should know. Like when my mother was teaching me cooking, it was very early. I used to love that, and I know. So even if I'm alone anywhere, I just know how I can survive by cooking and eating good food. I do not have to rely on just so we often believe that these things are only done by females, but we are taught like that, and these things should only be done by males. So that's wrong. And let me come to a biological fact. Just like we discussed about dark skin, and we realize that biologically they are more superior. Which is the default gender in nature? What is a default? What does default word means, Matthew?
Like normal or like, yeah.
Default is which comes like
Sir, automatically comes. Like if there is, we don't choose anything, it automatically chooses itself.
Can you yes, so to give an analogy, when you get a new phone or a new something, it has all the default settings, right? Then you
There's
tweak
nothing additional to it.
Yes, so you tweak and customize the settings that, see, I do not want this wallpaper, I want this wallpaper, or something like that. I do not want this ringtone. So you change all these settings, but when it comes from like company, it has one default setting with it. So we call it default, by default. And you must also have heard the word called by default. So by default, this is red in color. For example, by default, plants are green in color, because that is what it is, the color of chlorophyll. Do you understand? Yes?
Yes, sir.
So the default gender in nature is female. And how do we know this? Because we know another concept that I have to tell you for that is chromosomes. How many chromosomes do we have? A human have
46.
23 pairs.
23 pairs.
Yes, 23 pairs. Arpit said 46, which is also right. So 23 pairs, out of which 22 pairs are called autosomes. Okay? Autosomes. They are responsible for every characteristic which is present in the body, not associated with the gender or.
रुक जा भाई यार ऐसा मत करो यार छुट्टियां पे यार.
It's fine, Maharaj. Okay. So the 22 pairs are called autosomes. Okay. And there is one pair which is known as allosome or sex chromosome. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, allosomes can either be XX or XY. If they are XX, they give rise to a female, and if they are XY, they give rise to a male. Now, this Y chromosome seems to be the only factor that distinguishes between a male and a female. So it has some very so you can write down one more thing. It is asked in entrance. Y chromosome is the smallest chromosome. Write down. Y chromosome is the smallest chromosome with which contains around 1 few hundred genes, not even 100. I think it's less than 100 genes. Exactly, it is between 60 to 70. I don't know exactly what is the number of genes, but it has less than 100 genes. Okay, it's the smallest chromosome, and all these genes are just related to the manliness, the male phenotype of a human. Is it clear? Now, can
Yes,
you
sir.
think of these genes? These genes give rise to the reproductive structures. So we know that this small bit of chromosome, the smallest chromosome, brings all the difference. But that's not all the story. The story does not ends here. Actually, during the development from a zygote to embryo, and when the embryo becomes fetus, so fetus is that embryo which has started showing features. You know that? Use a word called fetus,
Yes.
a premature baby. Okay, embryo is just a mass of cells. We cannot look at an embryo and say that, okay, we can, but not all organs and structures are properly identifiable. In a fetus, you can start identifying certain structures and function and organs. So in a fetus, when the sexual organ starts to form, so you can get to know of the sex of a baby just by looking at the chromosome, or by taking the amniotic fluid. Remember, I told you that babies, we are inside a bag, right?
Yes, sir.
Where, so this is the baby, let's say I'm making the baby. So this is the baby, and around the baby there is fluid. Okay, so this fluid, which is called the amniotic fluid, how is sex determination test done? It is a part of your syllabus.
They
From
like
the
check your
amniotic
amniotic
fluid.
fluid, right?
Yes, and how do they take the amniotic fluid? From an injection. So they poke an injection, collect some fluid.
Sir, doesn't that break the?
No, it should not be like wide enough to break that amniotic cavity. So you just need to take small. We can even take fluids from cell, from one single cell. Remember, I told you IVF. One single cell, we poke into the membrane and we put the male nucleus inside to artificially cause the fertilization, right? So these are
Yes.
very, very thin microneedles. So you take this amniotic fluid, and in that fluid, you check for this pair, the 23rd pair, which is the allosome. If it is XX, then it is a female zygote. Way before it is formed, way before you can see that as a baby, you can get to know whether it is a male or a female. So this sex determination is banned in many countries
Sir, is
because of,
this even before the reproductive organ is formed or after that?
it's way before, it's even before the heart is formed. If you can get amniotic fluid anytime, mostly we do it at later stages, because in the later stages that baby is big enough and we can reach the cavity. But if you can somehow, by like sensitive techniques, normally we do not do any kind of tests on a 1 week or a 2 week old embryo, because that is very, very fragile and very small. After 1 month or 2 months, we can do this test, okay, safely, and we can get to know the gender of the baby, which is banned in many countries. And by that time, it's not important that the organs have to be formed, the male and female organs. So we may have
And
the gene. Yes.
and sir, by that time, the baby can be eliminated also. Abortion can be
Yes. So
abortion can be
abortion.
done in the first quarter.
For female feticide to avoid that.
Yes. So to avoid female female feticide, we do not allow this test in certain countries. Okay, it is allowed in many countries, like in many Western countries, in European countries, because people do not kill their girl child there. It's all the same for them
It's
because of
mostly in
some.
like East Asian or Asian countries.
Yes, mostly like the South Asian, India, and around the region around that. Okay, so it's banned in these countries. And the word abortion is used when we are doing it illegally. Even when we are legally doing it, it is called medical termination of pregnancy. Remember this term now. You will never see a doctor saying this words like abortion. They always say MTP. Sugarcoat things so that they do not pregnancy. Write down. Getting the, and MTP is a term. Sometimes MTP is important because sometimes some females, when they get pregnant, they realize that this pregnancy is not good. They start showing some allergy. You know, there is a condition where the mother becomes allergic to its own embryo, like to its own pregnancy. And in order to get rid of like that thing, you have to abort the baby way before it can develop. So that is called medical termination of pregnancy, MTP. But it can be misused. That's why we cannot do this test. But what I am trying to tell you is, much before this comes into picture and comes into play, there is signaling happening. So from one cell, when embryo is forming and forming all these sorts of organs, there is a signaling, and right signaling tells which organ has to form where at what time. Just like so the first organ related to reproductive organs which is formed, regardless of the fact whether it's a male or a female, is a tube-like structure which goes inside. It is a invaginating tube. Now this tube, if not given proper signal from this Y chromosome and associated genes that see it is a male body, stay careful, you have to make a male body, then this tube will automatically become a female organ. Is it clear? Do you understand? So the first structure that is formed inside a developing human embryo, which is related to the sexual reproductive organs, is like a tube. That structure is like a tube. No vagina, no penis, no testes, no ovaries is formed yet. This is the first structure that forms. It's like a tube which goes inside. Okay. It's like a canal, which later on becomes the vaginal canal and the uterus. Do you understand? So if you do not give proper signal, if you do not tell this canal what to become, it will by default become what? A female. So that is why I told that female sex is a by default state. And then signaling is required, overwriting, overlapping. Signaling in a systematic manner is required to make males. Okay. So if I ask you biologically, let's forget about patriarchy for one moment, and right in the face of patriarchy, biology tells that what is by default state of nature? Female. You know, males are a non-default state of a female body only. You will see everything which is present in female body will be there in male body. Everything, even the male reproductive structure, which is penis, the tissues from which this structure is formed is also present in females. Okay. There is nothing which is exclusively present in males and not at all present in females in any quantity. Even testosterone. Testosterone is present in males in much higher concentrations than it is present in females, but it is there. Even estrogen is present in males. Estrogen in the form of estradiol is required.
But in very, very, very less quantity, right?
Very less quantities, yes. And it's required for the proper development of brain and other structures. Okay. So if you study biology and physiology and anatomy, you will realize that, you know, we all come from female sex, all of us, because that's the by default state. And to give you another example, in research, you will find in nature, there are certain species of lower organisms and some fish in which there is only females are there. There is no male in that species. So there is only one gender present. It's not like all the males died. They were not there. They were not there from the beginning. They do not exist. The only gender that exists is a female sex, which can brood eggs and can lay those eggs just like parthenocarpy. So they always keep on doing asexual reproduction, but they have all the female structures. Is it? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope that I always ask my kids that when you step out in the real world, use this knowledge as your shield and stand against indiscrimination of any sort on the basis of knowledge. It is illogical, like it is immoral, unethical, but it is also illogical to discriminate. Okay, now let's come to the male structure. I'll give you a brief outlook today and we'll go into detail in next class. So you can write down this thing because I will be telling you the name of that canal, the structure, because it has been asked in entrance. Write down female sex is the default state in biology. When we will talk about how sex is determined, we will study about this. Let's where did the pen go? Now this is a male system. Okay, so a male system has two type of structures or two type of organs. One is called accessory organs and one is called the primary important organ. So the primary organ in a male reproductive system is testis. Testis is singular, testes is plural, TES. So this is the primary male reproductive structure. And in a female, it is ovaries, okay? And testis is a dual organ. Write down. Testis is a dual organ. This you have studied in class 11th. Why testis is a dual organ? Can anyone give me the answer? It is a class 11th question. What is a dual organ? What does the word dual means? Quickly.
Perform two
Two.
functions.
Yes. So testes form two kind of functions. One, it is a
It produces testosterone
yes. It is a gland.
and it also produces sperms.
Yes. So it is an organ which does gametogenesis, and it is also an organ which acts as an endocrine gland. It produces hormone. Okay, that's why it is called a dual organ. So you can write down testis is a dual organ. It produces gametes, which is spermatogenesis, and it produces male sexual hormone called testosterone. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Apart from testis, mostly like all other structures are accessory but important. Now, accessory structures are two types, internal and external. I'll come to all of this, but I'm just explaining you this diagram. So this is testis where spermatogenesis is happening. And this testis is present in a sac-like structure, which is called scrotum, which lies outside the body cavity. And why it is outside the body cavity? It has a
Because the
reason.
testis
To
needs
control the temperature.
no, it
Yes.
needs a temperature below body temperature to produce sperms.
Yes, because spermatogenesis requires 2 to 4 degrees. Write it down. 2 to 4 degrees is the range. In some books write 2 degrees. In some books you will find 3 degrees. So it's 2 to 4 degrees lower than the body temperature. And what is the body temperature? Keep writing. What is the body temperature? Average body
30
temperature.
36.
36.9 degrees Celsius. Yes, we often write it as 37. So 36.9 degrees Celsius is the body temperature, or 37 you can call it. And so the spermatogenesis requires a temperature which is around 35, like 33 to, yes, 33 to 35 degrees Celsius. But even when it is outside, so my question is still valid. Why do we need to put it outside the body? I can understand that if you put it outside the body wall, you can achieve, let's say, a couple of degrees less. But outside also, it can go to lower temperatures, right? Because in cold environments, like in places like where there is snow, or in like European countries, the outside temperature is 5-10 degrees, right? So when the sperm is, when the testes is literally hanging out of the body, it can also get exposed to very low temperatures, right? And under very low temperature also spermatogenesis will not take place effectively, because for spermatogenesis to happen efficiently, you need between 33 to 35 degrees temperature, but it will go way below that. So what is the solution for that? Just hanging it out of the body wall is a solution, do you think? Biology is not that foolish. It's an intelligent system. That's why this scrotum, which is the sac-like structure in which testis is present, and testes are two pair, okay? So it is, sorry, testes one pair. There are, yeah. Why didn't someone just, what are you thinking till now, Arpit? Anyways, testis is one pair. There are two testes in a normal male. There can be disorders in which there are three in some cases, but that is a anomaly. It's a disorder. Or a single unitesticular anomaly is also there, but there are two. And at the junction of scrotum and the body wall, there are muscles which are not made in NCERT, but I'll be marking it here. So make it in, if you're not making it, just write down. The name is cremaster muscles, and they have been asked in entrance. Cremaster muscles. So cremaster muscles connect the scrotum with the body wall, okay? And these muscles can always contract and relax, okay? I'll just take 1 or 2 more minutes and then I'll finish. And again, Matthew, you will stay, okay?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
And Kulsum and Samson. Samson, will you stay today for backup?
Actually, sir, I have another class at 6.
Kulsum, you have another
Yes.
class?
Yes, chemistry class.
Okay, no problem. Then we'll figure out.
I also have to leave at 6.
Samson, you will also leave at 6?
Yes, sir.
Then I'll suggest you that you try to get the recorded videos for my previous classes, for previous batches, or even the same batch, and look at it, okay? And come to me with doubts if you have.
Okay, so YouTube, right? Is there
Yeah.
YouTube? Okay.
Yes, you will ask and they'll give you a YouTube link.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank
But you, okay, cool. Matthew, you have to stay.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay, so we'll finish with this. So cremaster muscles basically can contract and relax, and they regulate the positioning or the distance of the scrotal sac from the body wall. So during hot environment or when there are summers, the cremaster muscles relax and take the testes away from the body wall as far as they can. Now there is also a limit to that, but they relax fully and they take it away from the body cavity. During the winters, they contract, and the testicles, they tend to move upwards towards the body, and they actually are closer to the body so that they do not are exposed to very cold conditions. Okay? Yes, Arpit.
What are testicles?
Testicles is testis only. There is another name for testis. So you call it testis or you call it testicle. It's the same thing. Okay?
Okay.
Testicle or testicles is the plural. So it's the same thing. It's testis. So testis can be moved up and down closer to the body wall or away from the body wall by these cremaster muscles. Okay? In humans. Now we will learn another interesting thing about testes in other animals as well in the next class. Okay, so this is where I end today's class. Go back and read the male reproductive system from NCERT before you come into next class, because next class is going to be a lot knowledge heavy and facts heavy. Okay, but we'll try to enjoy that as well. If anyone has any doubt, please ask. Otherwise, everyone can leave except for Matthew, Kulsum, and so there is going to be a backup class from 8 to 9. Anyone who wants to stay can stay. Otherwise, others can leave. Okay. See you in next class. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Kulsum, will stay or you'll go for the
I
class?
have the recording, sir. I'll watch those.
Okay, cool. Alvia, Sumaira, what about
Thank you, sir.
So I'll stay, right?
You will stay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sumaira will stay. Alvia? you want, you can stay. Otherwise, the normal class is declared. Okay, so Sumaira and Matthew and Alvia, understood today's class? Any
Yes,
doubts
sir.
with respect to today's class? No?
Not really, no.
Okay, so let's go to, so in the last class, Sumaira, were you there in the last backup yesterday? Yes, you were there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, cool. So we had finished with the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Today, we will talk about the foundational chapter from which all of this started, which is like from where we started studying reproduction, okay, and all the concepts associated. So today probably we'll try to bring you to the same level as the other class or other members of your batch are. Okay, Matthew, shall we start?
Yes, sir. Let's start.
Just give me 2 minutes break. I'll just fetch water for myself. Okay, will
Alright,
it work?
no problem, sir. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you. I'll just be back in 1 minute.